I'm Stuart Young and I represent Fiatech in Europe and the Middle East. I also represent Comet in the UK. On behalf of all of us at Fiatech and Comet, I'd like to thank you for joining us today on the Mobile IT Community of Interest. This is our third monthly meeting. I have great pleasure today in introducing our presenter, Harrison O'Hara from Costain. He'll talk about the subject of safe use of mobile devices. But before I go through today's agenda, I'd like to briefly introduce Fiatech and Comet and our community of interest. That's for those members or those attendees today who are not members of either organisation and are new participants to the community. Fiatech is a member-based organisation with an objective of accelerating the deployment of technology in the capital projects industry. We have nearly 100 member organisations, partners, including academia and subject matter expertise, and other companies, and we always welcome new members to participate in our activities and projects. Fiatech's goal is to lead global development and adoption of innovative practice. And just to be brief, nothing emphasises the value of our organisation better than the perspective delivered by our members. Peter Blake, who is the Project Delivery Group Director at Hatch, provided an illustrative example of how networking in Fiatech provides value to organisations by saying that Hatch was able to save over $250,000 in 6 months of schedule on a project through discussions with one expert that they had access to through Fiatech. If you're interested in getting involved or would like more information, just drop me an email. Details at the end of the session. So, the Mobile IT Community of Interest. As I said earlier, it's to bring together project stakeholders' ideas and improve efficiency in the field using mobile IT and share the knowledge to implement those ideas throughout the industry. The community is a joint effort between Fiatech and Comet. I mentioned about Fiatech, I'll now mention about Comet. Comet is a UK-based organisation whose principal aim is to learn from experience to deliver measurable business benefit in terms of adoption of mobile technology. Comet incidentally stands for Construction Opportunities for Mobile IT. Participants in the community will get together in two ways. Firstly, through the monthly meetings, such as this one, where all participants come together to learn about specific applications and technologies. And secondly, our participants will get together through the subgroup meetings, some of which have formed, and these will focus on specific topics of interest to the community, and the participants will carry out work inside their organisations to advance the knowledge on the implementation of mobile systems. The deliverables from the community developed by the subgroups would include reports, pilot tests and use cases of the work being carried out. These can give an insight into the benefits, challenges and costs involved in the use of new technologies and application. Furthermore, work inside the community can become Fiatech-wide projects through formal project proposals. This would increase the scale of a given project and involve all Fiatech and Comet membership for that matter. So why mobile IT? At the core of the group's interest, we have created the mobile IT community. Technology has significantly enhanced project information mobility for construction projects, but we believe, and our members believe, it's only scratched the surface. There are still many opportunities for industry to increase productivity through improved project information flow. As I've mentioned, we strive to solve practical problems, and the challenges associated to implementing mobile technologies are of a practical nature. We as a community hope to realise these potentials, and with your help we can make a real difference to this industry and seriously increase productivity. Today's agenda. I've got conference feedback on subgroups later, and I've got the main session, which is the safe use of mobile devices in construction job sites. Presenter is Harrison O'Hara from Costain. There's a few slides that I'm going to present on the Safety Working Group announcement, and then we'll have questions and answers and the announcements at the end. Okay, so the subgroups. We have 5 subgroups formed and potentially another 6 more. We were able to meet several people during the Fiatech Technology Conference earlier in the month. From the feedback we gathered, subgroups will meet once a month for discussion. These are small groups that should allow meaningful interaction and exchange of ideas among participants and may allow a participant to attend several subgroup sessions for topics that overlap. We will publish meeting times on the community's website and on the LinkedIn page. Once again, subgroups of interest: materials management, mobile hardware, mobile software, RFI, documentation in the field, and utilization of BIM data. Other areas of interest include data security in the cloud, training field staff on new technologies, safe use of mobile devices, digital signatures, electronic file control, utilization of BIM data for safety. If there is sufficient interest in these will be developed into ongoing subgroups. Several industry experts who participate in the community have agreed to coordinate on each of the main subgroups. More participants have expressed interest in coordinating subgroups, and we will contact you as subgroups move towards doing specific work, as several coordinators will be needed. Okay, today's topic, safe use of mobile devices in construction sites. I've great pleasure in introducing today's presenter, Harrison O'Hara from Costain. A bit about Harrison: he joined Costain as a graduate and steered his career towards cutting-edge and technologically advanced projects within the group. Harrison secured a competitive position at Loughborough University, working towards an engineering doctorate, researching how mobile technology is being used within building information modelling and its environment. The research focuses on a wide range of issues in the construction industry currently facing the industry, including safety, culture change, user acceptance, adaptation of processes and the latest technology. This study determines the current state of the industry in terms of mobile capability and provides recommendations for the successful implementation of future mobile IT projects. I'll pass it over to you now, Harrison.
Thanks, Stuart. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Good stuff. Okay. Okay, thanks very much. So firstly, I'd just like to say thanks to Stuart and Fernando for giving me the opportunity to present to the Fiatech group today. I hope by the end of the presentation I'll give you an understanding of some of the challenges that we face as contractors when trying to implement mobile technology safely. So can you skip on to the next slide? Okay, so the agenda today, I'll give you a quick introduction to me because Stuart's already given you one. A brief look at MobiCloud, just to give you an idea of the type of software in terms of mobile technology that we're trying to implement. Then cover some of the challenges we face, how we can use technology to our advantage to make the devices safer, give you some industry examples, then actually look at some of the benefits that mobile technology can bring in terms of health and safety, and then a bit about the future vision strategy, and then pass you back over to Stuart, who will focus on the safety working group. Okay, next slide. Okay, so you have to excuse the cheesy LinkedIn picture, but this is me. I graduated from Loughborough in construction engineering management. I then joined Costain as a mobile BIM technician. I'm a member of the commit team, which Stuart mentioned earlier, and leading up the BIM for mobility for the commit team. And then again, I'm at Loughborough University doing an engineering doctorate looking at mobile technology within BIM. Okay, next slide. Okay, next slide. So this is going to talk to you about MobiCloud, just to give you an example of some of the applications that we're using in the industry. So I'm sure some of you are aware about commit, and some of you hopefully will be aware about what MobiCloud is. basically this is an EU-funded project which is giving Costain a framework to develop in-house applications, which we're then using on our sites. And the first one we've developed is the site diary application. So if you skip on to the next one. If you skip on to the next slide.
Sorry, it's frozen. Just a second. Okay.
So there's four slides here just to show you what the application looks like. So it's on a iOS format. So that this is the Costain e-toolkit, and then if you click on to the next slide, once you get into the toolkit, this is the framework where we've got all the applications that we will have developed. At the moment, we've only got the site diary one there available, and there's a trial survey there, so we can get some feedback from the end users, how they like the interface of the application. And then this is what the application looks like. You've got all your job sites down there. If you click onto the next one, it'll give you an example of what one of these activities looks like. And this is the kind of applications we want to be using out on site. Nice, simple, easy to use interfaces. Okay, if you skip on. So we're now going to look into some of the challenges that we face as an industry. So the challenges that we face are threefold. They can be broken down into people, processes, and technology. Technology is seen as the less of the barrier, as current technology more than exceeds the needs of the construction sector and what we need and our expectations. The next area is process, which is a very important issue that needs a lot of consideration, because many of the processes that we currently use in construction have evolved or developed over time. And when we try and introduce a bit of disruptive innovation, such as a tablet device, it can seriously disrupt the processes that we've got at the moment. So rather than trying to introduce an iPad into an already existing process, what we need to do is take it back to basics and completely re-engineer the process to account for the mobile devices. So how would you recreate this process if you had a mobile device at the beginning? And then people. People is probably considered the largest hurdle when it comes to mobile adoption, and that's changing the culture and people's perception on mobile devices, really seeing these as a tool that can benefit rather than something that's going to cause risk. And then the overriding factor to all these is health and safety. Health and safety is always considered as #1 priority for all major contractors in the industry. And if we don't address safety or demonstrate that we have fully considered safety, senior management teams and SHE advisors will just restrict the use of mobile devices out on site, which has happened in extreme cases. They've just had a blanket ban on mobile devices. And it's true, if you just click on, and then when we consider, if you click on 3 times, when we consider all the other adoptions, all the other barriers that could potentially disrupt mobile use on site, if we don't address health and safety and take it seriously and we just have a blanket ban on devices, then all of these other issues become irrelevant. So that's why health and safety is critical to getting mobile devices out on site. Okay, if you click on to the next slide, you can just click through these. Actually, there's 5 of them. So these are what have been identified as the major health and safety risks when using mobile devices out on site. So mobile devices occupy the attention of the end user. It's been totally accepted, and I accept that devices do attract the attention of the end user. But the question is how different is that action from the other processes that people out on site are typically used to? The next point is it distracts the user from potential hazards. This is a very important point, and construction sites are considered to be dangerous places with a significant amount of dangerous plant and equipment. Therefore, we must be aware of our surroundings at all times. Does mobile devices compromise existing PPE? So we have mandatory PPE there on site. If you're introducing a mobile tablet into that site, does it compromise the critical mandatory PPE that the rest of the site are required to wear. Additional risks of carrying a mobile device. Does the end user have both hands while walking in case of slip, trips and falls? Does he have 3 points of contact on the ladder? These are all things that need to be considered when you're introducing mobile devices out on site. And then the devices that you use out on site, are these intrinsically safe? This was especially an issue on some of the Costain nuclear sites where they had to be spark-proof, spark-free devices and approved by any security system. So it depends on what site you're working on, what are the hazards around. You have to take this all to an account. Okay, if you click onto the next slide. Okay, so this is the 4 current, what do I say? These are the 4 current positions that management have taken when it comes to mobile device management. And the one we want to really be aiming for is the third one. So the first one is just a blanket ban on all mobile devices. And this is, it says here in brackets, it's outdated mobile phone policy. So this is where management view the tablets the same way as they view a mobile phone. We want to change this perception and make sure that the devices are being seen as a tool that's being used for a specific job. Number 2, which is a variation of the above with mobile-friendly safe zones. So on a lot of our sites at the moment, this is kind of where Costain's at and where quite a lot of other major contractors are in terms of how they're managing mobile devices, is they're putting safe zones around the site. So when the user's in the safe zones, they're free to use the mobile devices however they wish. However, by restricting the use of mobile devices to these safe zones, you're also restricting the potential benefits from these devices. You're actually taking away the mobile part of the mobile device, which takes away a lot of the benefits and what we're trying to achieve by getting mobile devices out on site. So we really need to think of new ways to get these devices out on site. And this is the third way that they want to look at. Is the technology is respected as a tool being used for a specific job. And you're writing specific risk assessments and method statements to get these devices out on site. And then the fourth way is just no guidance at all, no additional restrictions. They just go out and they're free to use the devices out on site, which I don't think is the most appropriate way about working. We want the third way, which is the devices are to be treated as a tool. Okay, do you want to skip on to the next one? Okay, so really, what are companies? How should they? What should they first address to get mobile devices out on site? So the first thing they need to do is review the company's health and safety policies. This is something that the working group that Stuart will talk about later is going to cover. We want to try and produce guidance to help companies bring these safety policies up to date. And on the next slide, I'll share with you Costain's health and safety policies in terms of mobile devices. If you click on Stuart. So task-specific briefings and risk assessments. Again, you need to treat the mobile device as you would any other construction tool. You've got people out on site using dangerous hand tools every day. The way these are used on site and the way they mitigate the risks is they write a risk assessment, they mitigate the risk. The user signs up to a method statement to say he's going to carry out a work activity in a specific way, and that's how you carry out the work safely. The mobile devices need to be treated in the same way. Educate the workforce on their use. So this is not a mobile phone. And this isn't just the people using the devices out on site. This is also the people who aren't using the devices out on site. You need to educate everyone on that site what the mobile tablets are being used for and who's authorized to use them. If you don't address this at the beginning, so do this during the site induction stage, the other operatives might see this as a floodgate to open to start using their own devices, start texting on their mobile phones for non-job specific actions. So it's very important that we get the message across to everyone who's out on site exactly what the devices are being used for and who's authorized to do it. If you click on a couple of times. Okay, so choose the appropriate hardware. We found that the smaller devices, the iPad minis, the Nexus devices, are more suitable out on our sites because they fit nicely in the PPE trousers of the users. So you have to take a compromise. What's the best device for carrying out the work, but also the most suitable for the end user. Make sure that the PPE you're using accommodates those mobile devices, and I've got an example of a commit project where they've actually started developing some PPE specifically designed for the use of tablet devices. And then again, think about the software that you're downloading on the devices. It needs to be simple and intuitive applications. Try and minimize the amount of times the end user's actually using the device. That way you're minimizing the risk of using the device. Okay, if we go on to the next slide. So this is Costain's safe use of mobile phones and personal electronic equipment policy, which was updated last year. If you click on one more, Stuart, this will actually state what is said inside the policy document. And it's quite a lot of text, so what I've done is just highlighted in red the important parts of the document. So the devices, while you're on the site, you're restricted from using the device for any real-time communication, which I think is a really important point because this is differentiating it from a mobile phone. The applications have to be sanctioned by the individual's line manager. So that means an individual hasn't got the authority to just go and download apps freely and start using it for whatever purposes they like. Every application needs to be approved by the line manager and certified. You need to write risk assessments and method statements for any application or any process that you're using the mobile device for, and that includes using it for a camera or camcorder. That way you're completely covered yourself, so you can prove to your managers and your health and safety executives that you've thought about every possible process or application this device will be used for, and then you're not restricting yourself to the potential benefits that the mobile device can bring. You're authorized to use it as a communication tool in case of an emergency situation, and when you're in a designated safe zone, you're free to use the device however. And then the last point I've just made there is that you're prohibited from walking at all times when using the devices. Anyone who's been to London and seen someone while they're texting, walking down a busy street, you know that they're not aware of their surroundings. Therefore, we've made it a point in our policy that you're prohibited from walking while using the devices. Okay, if you skip on to the next slide. Okay, so this is an image I've used in quite a few of my presentations. Is how are these two images different? I think the classic drawing on the left is the site operative or the labourer looking at a site drawing. Is no different in terms of what he's actually doing to the guy using the iPad out on the site. The only thing that's different is the functions and the application he'll be using the devices for. So if this is something we've been doing for decades and years, why can't we do it this way? I think it's just quite an important image and a powerful way to visualize it, to think how are these two actions actually different. Okay, if we skip on. Okay, so this is a look into now how we're using technology to actually increase the safety of the mobile devices. So this first slide is really one for all the software vendors out there, is remember that your software that you're developing is going to be used by people out on site. I know it seems like an obvious thing to say, but you have to think of safety as well when you're developing the software. So context-aware applications. These devices are intelligent devices, so if someone's logged onto it, they know who that person is, what their job role is, maybe what project they're working on. They can work out what weather is, what the time is, what the date is, what the location is. So all of these boxes can be filled in automatically. So you're minimizing the amount of interactions the user has with the mobile device. Context-aware apps. Context enabled the apps to become smarter and easier to use. So kind of that statement's really important. And then again, advanced ergonomics. The applications have to be friendly, intuitive designs, and easy to use. So make sure any applications improve processes. They're not making the person do rework or repeat work. So this is really important that all the applications are simple and intuitive to use. Let's skip on to the next slide. Okay, so this is a project that one of the Crossrail engineers is currently heading up. And this is through the Crossrail Innovate 18 scheme. So they've got some applications for funding to actually carry out this work. And this is basically using iBeacons, which are low energy Bluetooth frequency, which are fitted to the device. And they actually control the device based on your location. So if you can see the map, what they've done here is the area marked in red is a high-risk area. The area marked in orange is a work area, and then the green area is a safe area. So when you're in the high-risk area, what it will do is it will lock down the device, so then you can't use the device at all in the high-risk area. And then when you're in the work area, it might just disable the Wi-Fi capabilities and only give you access to certain forms or certain applications. And then when you're in the safe area, it will give you access to the whole device. And once you've set up the framework, basically you can rejig the boundaries of this, so you can change where the safe zones are, where the high-risk areas, and then all you have to do is have an iBeacon fitted to the device, which then controls the functionality of the device. And the typical battery lifetime on one of these devices is about a year. So you just have to keep changing that. And this would only be probably a temporary solution that they're using during construction. So that's a live project and that's ongoing. And I'm sure through this group we can keep you informed of the progress with that project. This is a really exciting project that can hopefully automatically control what the devices are capable of based on their location. Okay, Stuart. Okay, if you click onto the next one. Okay, this is just some industry examples of how the devices are being managed out on site. So this is another Crossrail job. This is the Bond Street project in London, and these are the sheep pens or the safe zones that I was talking about earlier. So on this visual, you can see the blue ways are marked out with walkways, and the green fences mark out the safe zones. So how they're using these out on site. So they're writing again task-specific risk assessments to cover the use of iPads out on site. These are restricted to be used within the clearly marked safe zones, which can be easily set up or moved to the appropriate locations around the site. Clear signage is used along with bright green pedestrian barriers. The task briefing also covers carrier cases and straps so that the iPads and tablet, so the user can still climb ladders and maintaining that 3 points of contact. So the aim of this scheme is so that devices can be used more widely around the site. But again, there's some concerns about management. So what they did is set up these safe zones just to get the iPads used out on site. The management can start to see the benefits, and then they can slowly start using them outside the safe zones. But again, it's got to be done in a very controlled manner. After someone's been briefed on how to use the devices out on site, they're given a sticker for their hard hat, which matches the sticker on the safe zone. That's for two reasons. One, the people out on site, the operatives, can identify clearly who's been authorized to use it, and the managers out on site can quickly identify if someone's using a tablet device, is that person trained to do so. Okay, let's skip on to the next one. Okay, so this is a Costain project. This is an all-Wales maintenance project, and here they've been using the Samsung Galaxy tabs out on site, and they're using the Otterbox cases to make them semi-ruggedized. This is a bit different from other sites because these are transient workers, so there isn't one fixed site. This is a framework project, so there's maintenance jobs, so they get sent the jobs to their mobile devices, and then they can access documents and folders through the mobile devices. But basically how they got these used safely out on site is they gave everyone training on the devices, how to install the applications, how to use the software, highlighted any potential risks of using the devices, and then got all the staff to sign up a receipt of training to make sure that they'd all sign in and agree to the policies out on site. And this has been a very successful project. So a bit different from the other ones, but still very successful, and the mobile devices have been used safely out on site. We skip on to the next one. Okay, so I'm not sure if Stuart's going to touch on this later, but this is basically a project that the Commit organisation is currently running, and this is about PPE that accommodates for the use of mobile devices out on site. So basically what they've got here is they've got a PPE vest, and the idea is that the mobile device is stuck on. This is done through a Velcro panel. It's still going through whether they have a zip pocket or a Velcro panel. This is only in the early stages at the moment. And the idea here is the user can put his hand in through, peel off the iPad, be able to do what he needs to do with the iPad, and then stick it back to him. And it's got a lanyard there, so it won't fall from heights or anything like that. Again, this has been widely, it's had a lot of good responses from it. I think the position of the iPad might need to move further down the body. But apart from that, it seems like this could be a successful project. And again, this is just a PPE vest. You need to think about all the other bits of kit that you use out on site. How can you accommodate this PPE to use for mobile devices? Okay, we skip on to the next one. Okay, now we're going to look at some of the health and safety benefits from using mobile devices out on site. So I think there's a few here, Stuart, so we just click through them. So the benefits, when people are out on site with the mobile devices, you're giving them access to all the forms, drawings, any documentation they need to do out on site. So you're minimizing the risk of them having to go back to site because they've forgotten a site drawing, for example. So this minimizing of movement around sites is restricting the risk of slip, trips and falls around site. You're reducing the amount of equipment required. So if we just take the site diary application that we've developed in Costain, previously, before, the site engineers used to take notes in their notebooks. They used to have a site camera to take pictures, pens, pencils. You have to go back to the site office, collate all that information and type it all up. If you can do that all through the mobile device, you're reducing the amount of equipment required to carry out certain activities. You can guarantee that the people out on site have access to all the project safety information during critical operations. So everyone will have their permits with them, everyone will have the right certificates, everyone will have the right drawings, which is crucial during some activities out on site. You're increasing the accuracy of the work carried out on site because you can make sure that all the drawings and documentations that you have are the latest version. And you also can instant and live report on any issues that happen out on site. If you click onto the next slide, it actually has an example here from Bechtel, which is a case study from New Doha International Airport. If you click on one more shirt, they had a traditional method of collecting safety observations. And using the paper-based traditional method, they collected 800 observations per week. They then introduced the iPads on site, and in their first week of use, they actually increased the amount of observations to 1,000. And then, if you click on one more, on their peak usage, this actually increased to 1,400 observations per week. And this is just a demonstration of how iPads can actually increase the safety out on site. Because people have the devices with them at the time, they can record the activity there and then as it happens, rather than waiting for the end of the day or even worse, the end of the week before they reported it. You can see it already instant improvements to safety. All right, if you click on to the next one. Okay, so the future vision, what do we need? So we need company-wide guidance in terms from senior management about how to use mobile devices safely out on site. We need to clearly identify what the protocols are, and people won't wait. We know that from Costain. Before we had identified it, people out on site had been using the tablets in their personal life, in their home life, and wanted to reap the benefits from using a mobile device in their work environment as well. So they were going out, they were procuring iPads and using applications out on site, which is great because we don't want to stifle innovation, but then at the same time we can't be guaranteed that their method and what they're using is necessarily the safest way of carrying out that activity. So that's why it's important that we put in the right rules and regulations so people can carry out work efficiently but also safely. Okay, if you click on. Okay, so what do we want in terms of the future vision? And this Stuart might cover it later in the working group. But we need guidance from some of the governing bodies, such as the HSE. What do they want to see? What do they want to see in terms of how are these mobile devices managed out on site? Could it be an introduction of a module into the CSCS test, so everyone who works on a construction site has at least some basic awareness about how mobile devices are planned to be used and how they're used safely. You want more projects like the Crossroad project, which I showed you earlier, location-based control and management of the devices, using the technology on the devices to make sure they're used safely. And we need to consider what devices we're going to be using in the future. So the tablet devices won't be around forever. What's going to be the next mobile device? But that's something we need to look to in the future. And then, yeah, this is just me summing up now. So I completely understand that introducing a mobile device will always add risk. However, we carry out many risky operations in construction sites. It's how we mitigate these risks and get the mitigation, how we mitigate these risks, how we communicate that with the rest of our staff. We need to educate the entire workforce on how mobile technology is being used. We need to understand and promote the potential benefits to get those who are sitting on the fence, get them on board and get everyone behind this. And we need to embrace the mobile generation, which is definitely here. And now I think I'm going to pass back over to Stuart, who's going to talk to you about this group which we formed to discuss and develop a solution.
Okay, thanks, Harrison. We'll have you back in a minute, so hang in there for now. We've got where are we now? Well, basically we formed the working group, and we're going to examine the safe utilization of mobile devices. We've got contractors from global organizations. We've also got a number of health and safety professional people in there as well. We've added to that subject matter experts. We've got vendors from both the hardware and the software companies. We've got regulatory bodies. Harrison touched on the CSCS there. We've got some behavioural specialists, including some academic organisations as well. We will have consultation with the regulatory bodies, and we will be seeking to expand the group a little more than we have. We have had discussions with a lot of these people already, and on my next slide I'll just sum up what we've actually done so far. So everybody's in agreement that we need an industry-wide code and standard. In agreement that this technology progress must not be halted by health and safety. Everybody agrees that health and safety is number one. We mustn't put it anywhere else. But we mustn't let it stand in the way of technology progress. Yes, company-wide guidance, training, as Harrison touched on, training is absolutely essential to make this work. We need to have clearly identified all the protocols. We also have found that users in the trials on site have identified numerous opportunities to increase the efficiency of the devices. So we must ensure that field automation, if it's going to be successful, we've got to help it get there. We've got this focus in the future to produce this industry-wide code, and a number of the organisations that have expressed an interest to get involved all agree that's what we must do. One of the sessions that we had during a Comic Community Day recently was to ask the community for some suggested benefits. Now, you might have heard some of these already mentioned by Harrison, but these are some that came out. They're not all, probably about a third of the ones that were produced. But the first one we got there is interaction with other devices and equipment. That was seen as a huge benefit. If you can see where things are and what's happening, that was considered a huge benefit to safety. Monitoring of staff on site, we looked at those zones, the smart beacon zones. You could link that to safety as well, and I'm aware of a number of projects, pilot projects that are going on with academia that look at that, you know, for the well-being of an individual on site. On-site training, daily site briefings, toolbox talks, ability to record them quickly and easily. A lot of them get done, but not all of them get recorded. You don't always get the signatures of people that attended, etc., etc. So there's a possibility there. The other benefit is less foot traffic. If you're not having to wander around as much because you've got everything that you need in one place, there's less people on the ground. Again, moving on to the next one, carrying less kit. If you've got one item instead of several, then potentially you don't have to carry as much. Safety auditing, instant notices. Once an audit's done, you saw the case study there done on the Bechtel project. There's more auditing done, therefore more of the issues are picked up. A lot of organisations now encourage their supply chain to do audits on site, which is having positive effects on the way that safety is managed on site, because not everybody can see the issues, but the more people that look around, the more chance of spotting the issues. So with the technology, we've potential there once again to improve safety. Right data at the right time of the day or the week. Again, pushing information out is perceived by some on sites as a real positive. Lone worker monitoring. It does happen on occasion where you've got people maintaining equipment. They work on their own. Not everybody's policies allow this to happen, but there are quite a few that still allow it to happen. And the monitoring, it could be something that proves beneficial through the use of tech on site. And of course, the more benefits from using BIM data and linking 3D near misses to the BIM model, again, perceived by some as a potential aid to safety on site. Thanks very much for that. I just had a few minutes there just to throw that in. Those are the outputs so far from the various discussions that we've had. There will be more following. We hope to have a full session in May, and we'll report back on that again. But I'm going to lead into the questions now, and I'll bring Harrison back in. I just need to see the questions that have arrived so far that we've got. Good. We've got first question we've got here. How much work is necessary on the back end to define safe areas of the job site? Can such work restrict the use of safe zone technologies for medium-sized or smaller job sites? Harrison, have you got? Could you jump in on that one? Can you answer that question?
Yeah, sure. I think on smaller job sites, I think it's the safe zones are probably more appropriate because you probably don't need to be around the whole site the whole time with the mobile device. You can be within the safe zone and still have a good view about what everything's going out on site. I think it's more for the larger sites is why they have a number of these safe zones set up out on site. I think it's important with the safe zones that they are mobile in themselves, in the fact they can just be picked up and moved somewhere else, so they're not permanently fixed in one place. Because as people that work in construction know, it's always a changing environment, and the sceneries always change. But I think it's important that we look to projects that move away from these safe zones, because they are good in terms they get the devices out there quickly, and we can start getting some benefits out of the devices. However, we need to consider getting them out and used everywhere out on the site.
Okay, thank you for that. I've got another one that's arrived here. What's the process for joining the community of interest? Well, just drop me a line, drop me an email, and I'll respond to you on that one. That's great. Thank you, Mubarak. Thank you. Next question we've got here. From the list of health and safety benefits shown, have we looked into specific metrics that can accompany each element in the list, such as total distance walked by field personnel, conversion rates of information accessed during safety critical operations, or conversion rates of safety issues reported live? If not, which aspects do you think have a priority to make the point that use of mobile tools is necessary for advancing the industry? Harrison, I'm going to offer that one to you again. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. It's a very good question, and it's one challenge that we do face is actually quantifying the benefits of mobile devices. In terms of the one that we've done initially to get management to buy in is actually a cost benefit of using the mobile devices out on site. So one of the operatives, we compared the typical activities that he does over a 2-week period, and we timed him for each activity how long it actually took to physically do the activities. And then we introduced a mobile device and said, now carry out all the activities again using these applications for the same work processes. And we were able to demonstrate X number of hours savings over the 2-week period. We then multiplied that over the period of the project, how much we charge in terms of an hourly rate, and then we were able to give a figure in terms of a measurable benefit of using the mobile devices out on site.
Okay, thank you. Next question I've got that's coming here. Thanks, Fran. Do you ban all electronic use on site? iPads, iPods, personal phones, someone wearing Google Glass watches, smartwatches? Harrison?
So we've got a blanket ban on all mobile phones out on site, but we are currently using tablet devices out on site within the safe zones, and one of our projects is now attempting to use the devices outside of these safe zones. So the mobile devices, the tablets and stuff, we need to change people's perception again. It's like I said earlier, that they're not a mobile phone, so we will still continue to have a blanket ban on mobile phones on our sites, but we are using tablets out on site. And again, it's important that we get the message across to everyone else that people are trained to use these devices, so we're not opening up the floodgates for people to start bringing their own devices out on the site, specifically non-specific work-related devices. There's a ban on using iPods or anything out on site. You need to be using devices that are being used for a specific tool or a specific job.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. One more question. Mention that paper-based tools and electronic tools are not different in terms of grabbing people's attention. However, electronic tools have auditive and sensorial outputs that can be distracting. Do you expect these outputs to affect the definition of industry-wide standards? And
yeah, I think it's important that we take into account all the outputs of mobile devices, and these definitely have to be factored in to the industry-wide guidance. But But I'd also turn that question on its head and think about how can we use these outputs to increase the safety of the mobile devices. So we can put sensors on the devices, RFID sensors, so if they come in a certain radius of a bit of plant or within a danger zone that we set up, you can give off an audio signal or a vibration signal to warn the user of potential hazards, which paper-based systems can't do. So it's how do we actually change the technology away from being a risk into being a health and safety benefit.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions from our attendees today? I've exhausted the 6 questions I had. Anybody got anything else? No? Okay. Well, I'll say thank you very much for attending today. I'll just make a couple of final announcements on this. We'll contact you further about the subgroups formation and development. We have our next community session on the 21st of May, so please save the date for that. And just for your information, we are having the community sessions on the 3rd Wednesday of each month at 9 AM US Central Time. I'll just move on to the, if I can, I'll just move on to the next. I need to just show the next slide here. Okay, those are the intended dates. If you could possibly save those and join us next time. So join the community on LinkedIn for all the announcements. We have a subgroup there that's operating and growing. You can view the previous community session, which took place on the 5th of March. But thank you very much for joining us today, and thanks very much to Harrison as the presenter. A great presentation, and thanks to Fernando for helping coordinate the session today. And we'll see you all next time, hopefully. Anything in between, just drop me an email. I did share my email address earlier there, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.